DR Congo's president urges the youth of his country to establish vigilance groups to counter the M23 rebels. Former independent presidential candidate in the Gambia calls on President Barrow to prioritize the security sector reform agenda and also tackle the high cost of living in the country. And Zimbabwe has become Africa's maiden country to endorse the use of HIV and AIDS preventive drug. Well, this and more coming your way on The World Today. This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. Now, the resurgence of the M23 rebel group in DR Congo has prompted President Felix Tshisekedi on Thursday to call for young people to form vigilance group in the east of the country. Moses Mendy tells us more of that in this report.
The M23 rebel group resumed fighting in the latter part of 2021 after being dormant for years. The group claims that its resurgence has been largely due to the failure of the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo to fulfill an agreement to integrate its fighters into the national army. The resurgence has seen heavy fighting between government troops and the rebel group, leading to instability in the eastern part of the country. Now, the DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi, who accused neighboring Rwanda of backing the militia, said he invited the youth to organize themselves into vigilance groups with a view of propping up, accompanying and supporting the armed forces of Congo, as diplomatic efforts to end the fighting yield no tangible results. The president added that the recent violence in a long-standing conflict that has escalated in recent weeks and caused a diplomatic rift with Rwanda will require sacrifice as well as the engagement of all of the nation's daughters and all of its sons. Tshisekedi took the opportunity to renew his call for young people to enlist into the army while cautioning against stigmatization of Rwandese communities. The M23 went back on the offensive in late October after several weeks of calm, grabbing multiple localities along an important road serving the strategic eastern city of Goma. According to reports, the Congolese army, together with the UN peacekeeping force MONUSCO, repelled a rebel advance on the city of Goma, and rebel fighters have since returned to their hideouts near the border with Uganda. However, residents in other parts such as North Kivu and Ituri remain fearful of M23 and other armed groups in the region. The DRC announced on Sunday that it was expelling Rwanda's ambassador, while also recalling its envoy from Kigali earlier this week. Moses Imende, Eyeafrica News.
And from security now to some migration news, because despite measures to counter irregular migration, Tunisia continues to witness a significant increase in the number of people embarking on the dangerous journey to Europe. Authorities of the North African nation are worried about the prevailing situation, thus calling for a wider collaborative approach to curtail the practice. Now, the lack of job opportunities in the continent, especially for young people, has largely been attributed to the high influx of migrants using the perilous journey in search of greener pasture. Let's have more details of that in this report.
The Tunisian Forum for Economic and Social Rights, that specializes in irregular migration issues, has revealed that the year 2022 recorded the highest number of Tunisians reaching the Italian coasts through irregular migration compared to the 4 previous years.
All recent economic and social indicators show that Tunisia is facing an unprecedented crisis. The situation is getting worse, and more people, including women, children, and unaccompanied minors, are risking their lives every day. Irregular migration will not stop as long as legal migration is impossible.
The director of the International Labour Organization ILO office for Algeria, Libya, Morocco, Mauritania and Tunisia said that all stakeholders in the Mediterranean region must work together to offer economic opportunities for youths to limit the flows of irregular migrants.
Unfortunately, the result of irregular migration is catastrophic, with many tragedies and deaths. We monitor people from lives, facilitate regular migration to guarantee the safety and rights of migrants who can find a better life in the sea.
In Institute of Statistics, Tunisia's National Observatory for Migration has set up a database and updates on migration flow, developing a new migration policy encouraging regular and legal migration.
Migration it concerns the south of the Mediterranean. People will be allowed to migrate to look better. Sometimes migration is a solution. It's not good governance allows bright and positive side.
A few regular migration attacks by individuals, including Gambia, was thwarted in the north of Tunisia, arrested, including a smuggler in the migration. According to the Interior Departments, the Tunisians have managed around 30,000 regular migrants the Tunisian coasts towards Italy since the beginning of this year. Thousands of makeshift boats were intercepted in the Mediterranean.
Back here in the Gambia, now Papa Fall, former independent presidential candidate, has called on the Gambian leader, President Adama Barrow, to take security and the spiraling cost of living very seriously. He urged President Barrow to also put security sector reform at the top of his agenda, as the citizens need to feel safe and secure in their country. Mafuji Sise reports.
It is not a secret that security has apparently weakened with the advent of the Adama Barrow presidency in the Gambia. Many have attributed this unfortunate situation to broadly two main issues. First, a sense of demoralization by members of the security services who have had watched some of their colleagues dragged before the country's Truth, Reconciliation, Reparations Commission, TRRC, to be grilled on alleged human rights abuses committed during the rule of ex-President Jammeh. Secondly, there seems to be a new sense of freedom felt by Gambians which is leading many, especially the youth, into reckless and undesirable behaviors which has occasioned many premature deaths in the country, mainly due to knife crime. But that aside, there is also the issue of food insecurity, a major cause for concern for most Gambian households. The average salary in the country is not able to sustain most salaried workers who, in most instances, have many mouths to feed. This is not lost on Papa Fall, a veteran of the U.S. Army and a former presidential candidate. Papa Fall is of the view that President Barrow, far from fulfilling his promises to Gambians for a better life, erroneously surrounds himself with incompetent people.
The first 5 years, according to many and according to him, he feels that perhaps he was being undermined by those who was in his leadership. So we bought into that and perhaps got him endorsed. We campaigned very hard for him.
The price of basic food commodities are skyrocketing almost daily, and it seems the Gambia government is out of ideas as to how to tackle these issues. For Papa Fall, this should be a major cause for concern for any incumbent.
Because everywhere we go, people are complaining. The standard of living, the cost of living is very high. The people's buying parity is very low. What you used to buy for 100 last year or 2 years will now cost $300 or $400. So it is really not sustainable for the Gambian people. The electricity, the roads, the healthcare, you name it, everything is not working.
After President Barrow secured a second 5 years mandate some 10 months ago, there was the feeling that perhaps he will make the necessary changes in personnel and begin to deliver on the goods. But for Papa Fall, President Barrow simply cannot do any better, as he already had ample time to make the necessary changes if he wanted.
In leadership, in governance, 10 months is a lifetime, because what you can do in 10 months to show people that you understand their concerns and you are working to address it. In 10 months, that can happen. When people see that corruption is high, waste is out of control, there are no consequences for corrupt behaviors, the lack of resources for security personnel to be able to protect the citizens, these are all mounting things that the government, Barrow's government, should pay attention to. And I hope that he will pay attention to, because time is running out.
The recent rise in violent crimes, the high cost of living and poverty is driving many Gambians into despair. Powerful believes there is a limit to what Gambians may be ready to tolerate.
Couple that with the high cost of living, people are now can only take it for so long. So for me, my supporters who voted for Barrow are now turning to me to say, you told us to vote for Barrow. Now look at what is going on. I usually don't have anything to say. I don't know what to tell them, because, you know, it's, I think that Barrow's words should be his bound. He promised the Gambian people that he's going to change. He promised the Gambian people that he is going to address their concerns. And I think that he should address those concerns by reducing expenditure, government expenditure, and then boosting public spending for people, especially the environment of people's living, the livelihood, the cost of food and fuel and medicine. If you spend money, subsidies on those things, you are not throwing money away. You are actually helping people.
Official police records have shown that the vast majority of the active criminals are foreign nationals who are capitalizing on the weak state of the security apparatus in the Gambia to commit crime. Mafuji Sise, Eyeafrica News.
And from the report there by Mafuji Sise, now elsewhere in the continent, amid the growing insecurity concern in the West African country of Burkina Faso, citizens have been responding to the government's call to voluntarily join the cause of defending their countries against rebel groups. Now, some of the recruited people, including women, have expressed their willingness to help combat the growing insecurity to regain their liberty. Now, Burkina Faso has been rocked by two coups since the start of the year, with each new leader accusing the previous of having failed to quell the violence. Here's more details of that in this report.
These men and women are among many across Burkina Faso who have responded to the government's call to defend their country. They want to liberate areas still controlled by militants. This woman did not even tell her husband she will be coming to this recruitment center. For her, what matters most is helping to restore security in the country.
My motivation is to respond to the urgency of recovering the territory and defending the homeland. The commitment can be direct or indirect, but we have the same objectives. We want solidarity. We want the authorities to work by listening to the people. If we work together, we will win the battle.
These volunteers know the task ahead is challenging. Some of them even close their businesses so as to respond to the government's call. Usman Koulibaly is a businessman and a senior high school teacher. He has already registered to join others in the battle against the militants.
Being a volunteer for the defense of the country is my contribution so that the country can get out of the insecurity that we're experiencing today. Every Burkinabe can contribute in his own way to the war effort, whatever activity he carries out.
3 days after the launch of a recruitment, 100 people had registered at this site in Ouagadougou. Those being recruited are Burkinabes aged at least 18 years or older who are physically and morally fit to defend their country.
Since 2016, militants have carried out attacks in Burkina Faso targeting the army and civilians. Insecurity in the country has led to political unrest and a succession of coups. In 2020, when President Roch Kabore announced the involvement of civilians in the fight, there was much concern. But today, the volunteers have shown their eagerness to liberate their homeland.
Security remains a concern in several African countries, including Burkina Faso. We only hope that the authorities would do the needful to counter the growing, of course, insecurity in these countries. And with that report there now, we will take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And once again, many thanks for joining us, and let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, in a bid to eradicate the HIV and AIDS disease, Zimbabwe has become the first African nation to endorse the inoculation of a HIV and AIDS prevention drug to its people. After years of clinical trials in several African countries, Zimbabwe has taken the lead in rolling the injection cabotegravir drug, which is believed to be more efficient and effective than earlier produced HIV/AIDS drug. Researchers intend to make the drug available to its eligible users with this landmark achievement. Here's more details of that in this report.
Clinical trials for cabotegravir began in 2016 in 7 sub-Saharan African countries. 3,200 participants were enrolled. 800 of them were in Zimbabwe.
Our results show that cabotegravir injection was superior, works better than a drug which also works very well. This was an injection, so it follows that sometimes with pills you forget, but in injection you don't forget. So it was found to be superior.
Cabotegravir is a preventive medication that works by inhibiting the HIV virus from attaching to host cells and reproducing itself in the human body. Unlike existing tablet medications that need to be taken daily, it's injectable and taken once every 8 weeks. With the drug now registered, researchers want it to be made available within reach of the groups at the highest risk.
We really want adolescent girls and young women, other women, and then other populations to access this product. The cost, as of now, I can't tell you the dollar figure, but it is prohibitive. So we need, as policymakers, as governments in sub-Saharan Africa, we need to work with the manufacturers of cabotegravir, long-acting injectable, so that maybe they waive our patents, I don't know, or they make it affordable to us here in sub-Saharan Africa.
HIV/AIDS remains one of the most serious health concerns for Zimbabwe.
The National AIDS Council says over 23,000 new infections were recorded in 2021. According to UNICEF, 1/3 of new infections in the country are amongst people aged between 15 and 24.
And that inspiring health-related report is coming from the Zimbabwean capital, Harare, and I hope other African countries will follow suit. And to our final story next, because the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says that peace-building gains on the African continent and everywhere are reversing. He made these remarks at a Security Council open debate on integrating effective resilience building in peace operations for sustainable peace. The UN chiefs stressed the need to ensure a simple focus on prevention and building resilience by empowering UN peace operations and being equipped to play a great role in sustaining peace at all stages of the conflict and in all its dimensions. Mariama Cham reports.
Conflicts in Africa may be said to have been caused by a multiplicity of factors such as arbitrary borders created by the colonial powers, the heterogeneous ethnic composition of African states, inept political leadership, corruption, the negative effects of external debt burden, and poverty. The continent of Africa has been highly susceptible to intra- and interstate wars and conflicts. This has prompted the insinuation that Africa is the home of wars and instability. Against this backdrop, the United Nations Secretary General believes that empowering and equipping peace operations is a fundamental factor in sustaining peace. This, he said, can be made possible through commitment and respect for human rights, among others.
And that requires committed, inclusive national ownership that considers the needs of the most vulnerable, including women, young people, and minorities. Above all, development and respect for all human rights, economic, social, cultural, civil, and political, are the world's best preventive tools against violent conflict and instability.
The UN boss said women and youth leaders must be enhanced, making sure that they benefit from peace and development gains in their various countries.
We must bolster the leadership of women and youth in shaping the future of their countries and ensure they benefit from peace and development gains. The contributions of women peacekeepers and local women networks are pivotal to building community resilience and ensuring that women's concerns are front and center in conflict prevention and resolution efforts. We know securing women's rights and equal participation in decision-making is essential to building and maintaining peace.
In her briefing to the Council, the Assistant Secretary General for Africa, Mata Ama Akia-Pobi, said conflict resolutions and inclusive strategies must be ensured for the success of peace operations.
To ensure the success of peace operations, we need inclusive strategies that consider the entire spectrum of peace, from prevention, conflict resolution, and peacekeeping to peace building and development. This would also require the mobilization and engagement of all related actors, whether international, regional, or national, working together in an integrated and coordinated manner. The Security Council has a vital role to play in this regard.
The chair of the elders, Mary Robinson, told the Council that security, sustainable development, and human rights should be the bedrock of effective and resilient UN peace operations. The chair of elders believes that the Council needs to lead by demonstrating coherence, acting in the collective interest of the whole United Nations. Despite all odds, experts believe that government officials must be sincere with public funds so they can be trustworthy, including true commitment and sincere leadership to ensure equitable distribution of resources, promotion of rule of law, and the protection of fundamental human rights. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
And that report there by Mariama Cham eventually brings us to the end of this news edition. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. The World Today News Bulletin will return on Monday. You can join us then if you can, but on behalf of the entire production team, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and to have a pleasant weekend ahead. Bye for now.